Good afternoon and Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining us for the launch of National Disability Institute's 2015 Real Economic Impact Network webinar series. We're going to start you off with the pathway to financial stability for persons with disabilities. My name is Elizabeth Jennings. I'm Deputy Director here at National Disability Institute, and I will be your moderator today. We're so pleased to have more than 150 of you on the line today, and we hope that today's Return to Basics will be a great opportunity for you to consider how to get started in this really dynamic field. So I'd like to first hand this off to Nakia Matthews to provide us some housekeeping tips.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and good afternoon, everyone. The audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel, and if you accidentally close this panel, you can reopen it by going to the top menu, Communicate, and Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer, you can listen by phone. You can dial 855-244-8681 and enter the meeting code 669-903-882. And please note that you do not need to enter an attendee ID. And I will also put this number into the chat box. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. Captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which appears in the lower right corner of the webinar platform. If you would like to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can do so by minimizing some of the other panels like chat or Q&A. And conversely, if you do not need captions, you can minimize the Media Viewer. There will be time for questions at the end of the webinar. Please take the time to send any questions that you may have to me, Nakia Matthews, or you may email them directly to me at nmatthews@ndi-inc.org, and we'll have those questions answered accordingly. Please note, this webinar is being recorded, and the materials and archives will be placed on the NDI website at www.realeconomicimpact.org. If you experienced any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send me, Nakia Matthews, a message, or you may email me at nmatthews@ndi-inc.org.
Thank you, Nakia. We'd like to give a special thank you to the sponsors of the Real Economic Impact Network webinar series: Walmart, Bank of America, Accorda Therapeutics, the Burton Blatt Institute, and the IRS. Okay. If you're new to these calls or you got this announcement from a friend, we hope that you'll join NDI's Real Economic Impact Network. The network is an alliance of organizations and individuals dedicated to advancing the economic empowerment of people with disabilities. There are more than 900 partners in more than 100 cities all across the U.S. Those partners include nonprofits, community tax coalitions, asset development organizations, financial education initiatives, corporations and private sector businesses, federal, state, and local governments and agencies, and individuals and families with disabilities. All members of the network join forces to embrace, promote, and pursue access to and inclusion of people with disabilities in the economic mainstream. The services that we provide to you through the network are free. At a minimum, it includes a webinar each month and a newsletter each month. So we hope you'll sign up today at the link provided to you. And Nakia, if we could just take a moment to also put that link in the message box, so as we continue to go on today, you continue to have that opportunity. Given that it's tax time, we want to take a moment to remind you about My Free Taxes. This is a national initiative championed by the United Way, Goodwill Industries International, and National Disability Institute, sponsored by the Walmart Foundation. Powered by H&R Block, www.myfreetaxes.com is the only tax filing software to offer free federal and state tax preparation assistance for qualified individuals in all 50 states. I just want to take a moment to say, when we say free, we mean it's actually free. No pop-ups will come up advising people you suddenly have a charge or encouraging people to spend their money in ways that you wouldn't support as an organization. This is a free opportunity for people to get both their federal and their state tax preparation completed. There's more than 1,000 community, nonprofit, and faith-based organizations, local, state, and government agencies that are partners in My Free Taxes and promote and provide on-the-ground support for the program. This online tool has, since about 2009, been helping people prepare their taxes and file their taxes online, and has helped millions of individuals and families claim more than $10 billion in tax credits and refunds. If you'd like to join as an affiliate partner to My Free Taxes, we hope you'll register on the new affiliate portal. The link is there. It's affiliate.myfreetaxes.com. That's where you can find additional information and resources that you can use to promote and implement My Free Taxes within your own organization and your local community, and most importantly, connect those you serve to another free opportunity to get both their state and federal taxes filed. Just as a note, My Free Taxes is virtual, but it does come with a helpline, so if individuals need somebody to speak to during the process, that's available to them as well. Okay, so getting to today's agenda. Today we're going to provide you with an overview of key financial stability strategies, including public benefits and work support, employment, free tax preparation, financial literacy and education, and asset development. We're also going to help identify resources and tools for each strategy and leave ample time to answer your questions and answers. Please provide us with your questions as we go through the webinar, and if there are any questions that we aren't able to answer, if you shoot us an email after the webinar, we'd be happy to talk with you about it further. I'm very pleased to present Michael Rausch, today's presenter. Michael is the Manager of Financial Empowerment and Innovation here at National Disability Institute, and he's really an exceptional person to discuss these strategies with you, as he not only knows them from a level of implementing, but also how to support you in implementing it yourself. So welcome, Michael. Thank you for providing today's presentation.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you to each of you for participating on today's webinar. I would also like to say Happy New Year to everyone. In the fall of 2014, we distributed a survey to the Real Economic Impact Network members to find out what we are providing to you and what would you like to know more about. And one of the key findings from the survey was that our members liked our webinar series. So we really appreciate you all participating each month on our various webinars. We also learned that we have new members and other members who have new staff, new colleagues who want to educate them on the topic of building the financial stability of persons with disabilities. And so we thought we'd kick off the new year with really looking at what are some of the building blocks. So what is the foundation that we look at the National Disability Institute when it comes to helping individuals build their financial health. So we're going to look at some of those basic steps that you can take to help individuals build their financial stability. I do encourage you to share this recording. As Nikia mentioned, this webinar will be recorded because you can share it with your colleagues who may not be able to participate today. But this webinar also will provide you with some talking points on how to talk with others about creating a financial stability program within your organization. And today's building blocks are the foundation to financial stability for persons with disabilities. We will continue to build on this information throughout the year, throughout our regular monthly series through the Real Economic Impact Network. We also would encourage you, if you're not signed up for our monthly newsletter, the Real Economic Impact newsletter, to please sign up for that newsletter, because each month we provide additional tools and resources in each of the categories that I will be talking about today. So to get it started, we have a few polling questions. And so what we'd like to do is we're going to ask this question, and on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see the question. And what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to answer the question true or false. So you'll just use your mouse to click on what you think the answer is. So the first question is, persons with disabilities are only individuals that use a wheelchair. individuals who are deaf and individuals who are deaf or false. Excuse me, individuals who are deaf or individuals with Down syndrome. So if you could answer the question, take a couple seconds. All right, so great. So the majority of you got it right. So the correct answer is false. The Americans with Disabilities Act defines disability with respect to an individual who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a record of such an impairment, or being regarded as having such an impairment. And we include this question because we recognize that our network is made up of both disability partners as well as non-disability partners. And so oftentimes we are asked, who do we count or who are we including when it comes to persons with disabilities? And so oftentimes individuals might think that it's an individual who might just have a physical or a sensory disability, but it also includes individuals who might have a financial, or excuse me, a mental health diagnosis as well. So our next question here is true or false. So the question is, the disability community is a growing community. So on the right-hand side, if you could answer the question true or false, that would be great. And in a couple seconds, we will look at the response. Nakia, can we close the poll? Great. Thank you, Nakia. So the answer is true. The disability community is a growing community. It's a growing demographic. And so the majority of you answered correctly. That is a true statement. So here we provided some statistics just to look at how large the disability community is. And about 19% of the population, or about 56.7 million people, are considered to have a disability. A couple more questions here. So the next question is, all individuals with a disability live in a group home. True or false? If you could answer the question on the right-hand side, that would be great. All right, Nakia, if you could share the results with us, please. False. Excellent. So you all are doing a great job. Yes, that answer is false. Some individuals with disabilities do live in a group home setting, but individuals with disabilities can and own their own home, as well as live independently within the community. Oftentimes when we're out speaking in the community, we get this question to ask. I oftentimes share the story. I was in San Diego, California, presenting at a conference, and afterwards some partners came up and asked about our group home setting. They had the assumption that because I am a person with a disability, that we all live together. And so that definitely is not the case. So home ownership definitely is an option for persons with disabilities as they work to build their financial stability. All right, the next question, true or false? All individuals with disabilities receive a public benefit such as supplemental security income or Social Security disability insurance. So answer the question, true or false. All right, Nakia, if you could close the poll and share the results with us. All right, so the majority do have it right. The answer is false. Not all persons with disabilities receive supplemental security income or Social Security disability insurance. I showed the example about myself being a person with a disability. I'm protected by the Americans with Disabilities. I meet the definition stated in the Americans with Disabilities Act, but I am a person with a disability that does not receive a Social Security benefit. I don't receive SSI or Social Security disability insurance. But there are some individuals with a disability that receive a Social Security benefit. And according to the Social Security Administration's monthly statistical snapshot, over 14 million individuals are receiving SSI, SSDI, or both. All right, we have one last final question, and then we'll get into the content. So, true or false? Persons with disabilities cannot work full-time. True or false? All right, Nakia, if we could close the poll and check the results. So correct, the majority of you got it right. The correct answer is false. Persons with disabilities can work full-time or part-time. Persons with disabilities work and they contribute to the United States job market. It's important to note that some individuals may choose to work part-time due to their disability, their family obligations, and or transportation barriers. This is another common question that we get because oftentimes we hear from individuals or organizations that we speak with about building the financial stability of individuals. Oftentimes they might share that I didn't know that persons with disabilities work, or they felt that all of their needs were met through a public benefit program. And so some of these are questions that you might receive as you begin to talk about the importance of building the financial health of persons with disabilities. So with these questions, this leads us into our conversation of looking at strategies for building the financial stability of persons with disabilities. And there's a variety of strategies that we can look at, or that we do look at, as we help individuals build their financial health. So at the National Disability Institute, we look at 5 key financial stability strategies. And so those 5 strategies are public benefits and work supports. We look at employment. We look at free tax preparation services. We also look at financial literacy and education, as well as we look at asset development opportunities for persons with disabilities. We're going to look at each of these categories in greater detail on today's webinar. So if your goal is to help an individual achieve financial stability, so that would be their goal. So we look at this as a holistic approach. And we have an image on the screen right now of a circle with an arrow that leads to the goal. And we look at the 5 key strategies that I mentioned. And we see this as a holistic approach, working together to ultimately reach the goal of achieving financial stability. Now, it is important to note that when we look at financial stability for individuals, financial stability is different for each of us. What I look at personally would put me in a financially stable position might be different than what my colleague, Elizabeth Jennings, who you heard from earlier today, might be different for her when it comes to her personal goals of what financial stability looks at. And so it's really important that when we look at building the financial stability of individuals, that we really meet them where they're at and look at that the goal might be different for everyone. And I just want to give a quick example on that. So let's say a case where we are working with an individual and our staff, or some of us are also financial coaches. And I can remember in one of the situations, and talking with the young lady about what is her financial goal, and her financial goal of what financial stability looks like for her was to make sure that she had food for her children every night. So that gave me the point to, work with her from where she's at in recognizing that food insecurity is that barrier that's keeping her potentially from reaching that goal. And then we're able to build upon some other pieces. That's a simplistic example, but again, the point is that we meet them where they're at. So once we identify what their goal is, it's really important that we start off and look at benefits, planning, and work supports. And it's really important for us to look at all of the public benefits that an individual can receive, as well as potentially look at the work supports that are available to them. So you might be wondering, what do you consider benefits planning, or what do you consider as a public benefit, and then what do you look at or consider a work support? And so a public benefit are benefits that are made available by the federal, state, or local government to assist people who need help with food, healthcare, and day-to-day expenses, and some other needs. So if it's a benefit that comes from the federal, state, or local government, then we look at that as a public benefit. But when it comes to work supports, we look at that they are supports that lead to increase in job retention of the individual, job placement, as well as possible advancement. And I'm going to give you some examples of work supports as well as public benefits in just a minute. But one of the key things that we have learned through our work is oftentimes when we change the way that we phrase things, it really changes the participation by individuals. And so I can give you an example. So we had done a project about 4 years ago with the Wounded Warrior Project, and we were talking about various public benefits that individuals could potentially receive. And through that conversation, we've identified that food insecurity was a barrier for some individuals. And so as we shared with them to look at SNAP or look at food stamps, they stepped aside and said, no, I can't take a public benefit. But when we changed that conversation and said, hey, we have a work support that might be something for you to look at. Because if I'm an individual receiving a SNAP or receiving food stamps, there's a program attached to it called the Employment and Training Program. And so those are additional supports that an individual can access who's receiving SNAP to help them achieve their employment goal. So we look at that as a work support. So when we reframe the conversation of, hey, here's a work support to look at, we saw that the individuals were more likely to participate in that particular public benefit program. And one of the pieces that we look at there is that, let's face it, sometimes when we talk about public benefits, there's that negative stigma attached to it. But when we talk about a work support, it kind of has a different ring to it. So really important that sometimes we really focus on the way we use certain terms when we're talking about public benefits and other resources that we can receive as and phrase them as work support. So here's some examples of public benefits. So first of all, of course, we talked about this earlier, supplemental security income, there's Social Security disability insurance, there's Medicaid, Medicare, Section 8, SNAP, food stamps, and there's other benefits, public benefits that we could have listed here as well, but we just give you some examples. So then when we look at work support, we look at Social Security work incentives. So, for example, an impairment-related work expense, the work incentive we view as a work support. The Medicaid buy-in is another work support that we look at. the Family Self-Sufficiency Program for an individual who's receiving a housing voucher. That is a program to be able to help support an individual to achieve self-sufficiency. And to achieve self-sufficiency, we need work, we need employment. And then, of course, we list here the SNAP Employment and Training Program that I gave the example of earlier. Right? So if you want to find out more information to learn the first steps or to learn more about public benefits and work supports, we give you a variety of resources here to look at. Unfortunately, on today's webinar, due to the time limits that we have, we can't go into greater detail on each of these categories, but we wanted to give you kind of a taste of each, as well as give you a first step to be able to learn more information. So here you can go to the Social Security Administration's website and check out the Red Book. We provide you the link to find out more about the SNAP Employment and Training Resource Center, as well as more information about the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. An important first step when you look at public benefits is within your local community is to connect with the Work Incentives Planning and Assistance Project, or sometimes known as the WIPA Project. The WIPA projects are a great resource for persons with disabilities and really looking at and understanding their benefits, as well as looking at the impact or looking at how they can use various work supports as they begin to return to work. Each WIPA project has a community work incentive coordinator. Sometimes they're called CWICs, and these are trained experts who work with individuals one-on-one to provide in-depth counseling about benefits and the effective work on those benefits. We also share a couple bullet points here on who's eligible. It's important to note that for somebody to access the WIPA project, they do need to be receiving SSI, Supplemental Security Income, or Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI. So they need to be receiving a Social Security benefit, and they either have to be working, looking for work, or thinking about work. So this is a program to support beneficiaries who are looking to return to work. And so you might be wondering, how do I find the WIPA project, the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance Project in my area? And we provide the link here that you can access to be able to find the WIPA project or the WIPA provider in your area. And you can go to the Social Security Administration's website, as well go to the search engine at choosework.net, which is a part of the Social Security Administration's website, and type in your zip code, and it will give you the WIPA project in your area. So there are two key messages that I just want to leave you before we leave the public benefits and work support category or strategy that we look at here. It's important for an individual to look at each of the public benefits and work support programs to see which programs they are potentially eligible for. It's interesting when we're working with individuals, some individuals think that they may not be eligible for SNAP when potentially they are eligible. So it's really important for us to look at each of the programs that they could potentially be able to access, because then they can potentially access the work supports that are attached to it to help them achieve a job or increase their job placement and retention, or create an advancement opportunity at their job. For those programs the individual is already receiving support from, it is important to see if they are eligible for any work supports that are attached to each program that might assist in reaching their employment and financial goals. So please check out our newsletter each month because we talk about various work supports as well as public benefit programs so you can learn more. So now that we understand benefits planning or public benefits and work supports, we believe that having that information and really looking at the various work supports that we can receive, that it enhances the employment outcomes for individuals. because now I know that I can work more than 20 hours a week, or I know that transportation is a barrier for me, but because I'm receiving SNAP and qualify under the Employment and Training Program, that program potentially could offer me a bus pass. So now I have a way to get to work, and I can work more hours. So employment is an important piece that we look at. And when we look at employment, we look at employment as full-time, part-time, seasonal. We also look at self-employment. We look at competitive employment. We also look at customized employment for individuals with disabilities, as well as supported employment. And our LEAD Center does a variety of webinars looking at employment for persons with disabilities, and you can access their information, and I'm going to provide some more information on that in just a minute. And first up, to learn more about employment options for persons with disabilities, please visit the LEAD Center, which is a project of the National Disability Institute, and you can find out more from the LEAD Center at www.leadcenter.org/employment. Another first step looking at employment supports for persons with disabilities is to look at the American Job Centers. Used to, in some areas, still called the One-Stop Career Centers, but the American Job Centers provide a single access point to key federal programs as well as critical local resources to help people find a job, identify training programs, as well as gain skills in various industries or growing industries within their area. The American Job Centers provide a great resource. And if you haven't toured an American Job Center in your local community, I encourage you to go and tour the American Job Center to really look at all of the different programs that they have available to be able to assist persons with disabilities, as well as individuals without disabilities, obtain employment. To find the American Job Center in your area, please visit /jobcenter.usa.gov. And that will give you a link where you can go and put in your zip code, or you'll actually click on the map and be able to find the job center within your area. When you go to the American Job Center, some might have a disability program coordinator, or some might be participating in the Disability Employment Initiative. And within those job centers, they might have a disability resource coordinator that is located in that area that might be able to provide additional insight as well as guidance to assist individuals with disabilities identify employment opportunities. So now that we have wages, we've increased our work status. The cool thing that we get to do now is we get to pay taxes. And as Elizabeth mentioned, we are in tax season right now. And free tax preparation services is really important as we look at this holistic approach for individuals with disabilities. Each year, billions of dollars goes unclaimed because individuals do not claim the earned income tax credit, or they do not file a tax return. A few years ago, several years ago now, I guess, we did a survey where we asked individuals about free tax preparation services or filing their taxes. And one of the things that we found is that individuals didn't think that they had to file taxes, or they were afraid that if they filed their taxes and received a refund, that their Social Security benefit would be impacted. But the important thing to note is that the IRS and Social Security Administration talk to one another. So it's important for individuals to file their tax return, particularly free of charge. And I'm going to share some resources with you in just a minute. But the important piece to note in looking at the impact on their public benefits program is that an individual has 12 months to spend that money down before it will impact their public benefit program or their means-tested benefit, or whenever it comes to looking at their resource limit. So I think that's really an important piece for us to remember and to share. And just note that next month in February, our February 11th webinar is going to be all on taxes. with our partners through the My Free Taxes program. So you may be wondering, well, how do I identify or what are the free tax preparation services? So there's two that I want to share with you. The first is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Project or program, and the VITA program offers free tax help to people who generally make $53,000 or less, persons with disabilities, the elderly, and limited English speaking taxpayers who need assistance in preparing their own tax returns. So VITA services help a large audience for individuals who make $53,000 or less. And the individuals who prepare the taxes are IRS certified volunteers, and they provide free basic income tax return preparation, as well as with do it electronic filing to qualified individuals. If you're not a VITA volunteer and you're interested in, you still have some time to take the VITA test. I'm a VITA volunteer and do free taxes each year, and it's really a great service to be able to provide. The next free tax preparation service to look at is to look at myfreetaxes.com. And Elizabeth mentioned this earlier, so I won't go into too much detail. But my important piece about My Free Taxes is that it's the only tax filing software to offer free federal and state tax preparation assistance for qualified individuals in all 50 states. And as Elizabeth mentioned, this really is free. It is a free service that individuals can access. The other thing is that individuals might be afraid to do their taxes on their own. And the cool thing with this software is that it provides prompts and talks the individual through on how to enter their information and simplifies the process so that they can be able to do that. So My Free Taxes is another great option to look at. So to learn more about free tax preparation options in your area, please visit the Internal Revenue Service. And I provided you the link here where you can go and you can type in your zip code, and this will provide you with the nearest volunteer income tax assistance site within your area. Also, myfreetaxes.com is just that, myfreetaxes.com. So now that I understand the work supports that I can receive, now that I've increased my employment status, I'm working 30 hours a week. I learned that now I can have my taxes done free of charge. I see that I qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit as well. So I got a great refund. So now that I've increased my wages, I've received a tax refund, what do I do with this extra money that I have? And that's where financial literacy and education are really important for us to bring to individuals as they work to achieve their goal, to achieve financial stability. And financial literacy is the possession of knowledge and understanding of financial matters. So financial literacy gives us that knowledge that we need to be able to make positive behavior changes when it comes to our personal finances. So some sample topics covered in financial literacy programs. So we talk about banking. It's really important to talk with individuals with disabilities about banking. Some studies show that anywhere from 30 to 50% of the unbanked or underbanked are persons with disabilities. So it's really important for individuals to understand the continuum of banking and understand how to open a bank account. Also, savings. Credit and debt management is also talked about in financial literacy programs, how to create a budget, as well as rent versus home ownership. And there's several other topics that are covered in financial literacy programs, but I gave you a few samples here of those topics. So you might be wondering, well, what's my first step? I really want to create a financial literacy or financial education program within my organization. So what's that first step for me to learn more about financial literacy? So here we provide two resources for you. So first of all, we encourage you to visit FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation's Money Smart curriculum. This is a free curriculum that is available, and you can access this curriculum and learn more at www.fdic.gov/consumers/consumer/MoneySmart/. So you can go to that and find out more information about Money Smart. Later on this year, we'll be doing an additional series on financial education curriculums and resources. So you'll learn more in our April webinar. Another resource to access is check out our financial education webpage at the NDI website. There's a variety of resources that are located on that site. One is how to create a financial education program within my school or classroom or organization. Also, how do I make my financial education program accessible? And there's also some tools on how to identify the best online money management tool for myself and other resources that you can access. And you can go to our website at www.realeconomicimpact.org. And on the top of the website, you'll click on Our Work and then click on Financial Education, and you will come to that section. So this will provide you the information to be able to get started in looking at financial education curriculums and resources that you can access. The cool thing is that both of these resources are free. Great. So now I have a bank account. Now I'm saving money. I've also paid down my debt. I also am utilizing various work supports. And so now, looking at this extra money that I have, what can I do with it to achieve my financial goal? And so this opens the door to a wide variety of opportunities for individuals to build assets. So the last piece we look at is asset development in this holistic approach to building the financial stability of individuals with disabilities. And so oftentimes when we're out in the field, individuals ask, well, what do we consider as assets? Because if I talk to an individual about assets, they might think, oh, it's a home, it's a retirement, or things that might have a large price to it. And so we provide some examples here. So in education, the education that an individual has is their work history, or it's an asset. Their work history is also an asset. Oftentimes we may not think about it, but an individual circle of support, who is their network, that is an asset for them, particularly if an individual is looking for employment. You know, when you're looking for a job, you might say to your friend, hey, do you know anybody who's looking, you know, is hiring at this time? So our circle of support is really important, and we do consider that as an asset. Of course, some other things are the home, a small business, a savings, and retirement. One of the key things that I mentioned here in looking at education, from education work history to looking at a home or small business for an individual, because it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the goal and meeting an individual where they're at. But sometimes when we talk about asset development or financial stability, an individual might think that, hey, I won't get to that. I don't make enough money to be able to do that. But we want to meet them where they're at and help them identify what are those assets that they already have, which might be their work history, their education, or their circle of support. So that opens the door for us to talk about some other strategies that they might be able to access. And some of those other programs could include an IDA, an individual development account, which is our match savings accounts to help an individual save money towards buying a home, a small business, or starting a small business, or continuing their education. There's also the Family Self-Sufficiency Program that might help an individual build assets towards home ownership or small business, as well as looking at some of the programs within the Workforce Development Center or the American Jobs Centers. So there's a wide variety of resources that can help an individual achieve or build assets. And so to look at what is the first step. What is the first step for me to learn more about asset development for persons with disabilities? And I know I've mentioned this a few times now about the Real Economic Impact Network newsletter. And I share this because the content in that newsletter really is providing tools and resources on each of these topics. And one of the key areas of the REI Network newsletter each month is an asset development section for persons with disabilities. And in that section, we provide a variety of tools, including what is asset development, how to start an IDA program, an individual development account. We also have information on self-employment. What are the Social Security work incentives that can help me build assets? So that section provides some great tools and resources. And so you can access that on our website at realeconomicimpact.org and go to the resource section and access the REI Network newsletter in that section. So that is a first step in accessing this information, or learning more about asset development for persons with disabilities. So now within the time together, I have shared with you this holistic approach that we look at the National Disability Institute to help an individual achieve financial stability. One thing to note is that, we look at it in this order, but sometimes an individual might go from benefits planning and work support and be looking at employment opportunities, but also looking at financial literacy and education together. We put it in this format because we feel that it's easier to understand of what this holistic approach is, as well as each of the components that help build the financial stability of individuals with disabilities. So there's a lot more that goes into each of these different categories. And throughout this year, we will be looking at each of these categories and going into them even more on a variety of topics to go deeper into what are those tools, what are those supports that I can access. So with that information, we are going to turn it over to the Q&A portion of today.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. What an excellent way to kick off this year. Just in time as we're all strategizing kind of the goals that we have for this year and supporting others to think about how they'd like to spend their time this year. So we've gotten a lot of questions and answers. And again, if you had a question today that doesn't get answered, you're always welcome to reach out to us. So we're going to take a look at some of these. So for those of you, several people asked about accessing the PowerPoint and downloading the materials, and Nakia has put in the message box how you can do that. So let's see. Some other questions that have been asked include, do students under 18 with disabilities who are working need to file taxes?
So when we look at individuals, it depends on the wages, depends on the amount of money that the individual made to see if they do have a filing requirement. It's important for an individual that has a filing requirement to file their taxes. And at this very moment, I'm drawing a blank on the minimum requirement, but it will come to me before the webinar. So it's important, the minimum wage requirement that an individual earns to file taxes. I believe it's $600, but it will come back to me. So if an individual makes more than that amount of money, they will need to file a tax return.
Just as a reminder, Michael, I think it's so great that you can't remember the exact amount, because it's such a good reminder to all of us that all of these numbers for Social Security, for taxes, they often change year to year. And so building those partnerships and having folks in the community that you can tap, or resources like we provide through the NDI website, can be critically important in helping you to feel empowered to say, you know what, I don't know, but I know where to get the answer, and I'll get back to you on that. So another question that we have is, do you have a financial education resource that you turn to the most?
Yeah, so I can answer, and then Elizabeth may have a different answer. But so I look at FDIC's Money Smart. Oftentimes when I look at financial education curriculum, and I look at that curriculum for a variety of reasons. One, I like the idea that it's not copyrighted and that I can make changes to it. The other thing that I like about it is that you know, I can talk about Module 1 and about banking, but the individuals that I want to work with may not need the module on investments or 401k, so then I can go to the credit section and focus on that. So you can really kind of customize what you want your financial education program to look like. The other reason that I like that information, that curriculum, is that it's a free curriculum that individuals can access and order CDs, and it's really flexible in using in a variety of ways. One way that individuals can use it is, let's say you have a computer room or a resource center with various computers in the room. They have a computer-based version that you can load on all of the computers free of charge and let individuals go in and do an online class for 30 minutes a day. So it offers a variety of ways that we can use it. I also like NDI's asset development curriculum. And so I'm a little biased, I'm sure, but I like the activities and the tools on how to embed financial education, financial literacy into our existing programs. And you can find more information on our curriculum on our website in the asset development section. Elizabeth, do you have thoughts on other curriculums?
Well, I actually, funny enough, that's my favorite one too, and it's for the exact same reason. I love that it's not copyrighted. So, you know, those of you on the line who are serving populations of people that maybe need things modified, maybe they need a more tactile approach to what you're teaching, or they just are operating, you're going to provide financial education more of a peer-to-peer kind of support network where folks are supporting each other. I like that Money Smart can be completely modified to meet your needs, and that individuals can have ideas about how they think the next set of learners might take to the materials, and it can be adjusted accordingly. I should say that CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, has also put forward a free product called Your Money, Your Goals. And that, too, is something that's free to download. It has all the trainer guides, and it's another one that can be modified to meet your individual needs. So another question is there a list of agencies that can help individuals get out of debt? I've seen a few advertised on TV, but I'm hesitant to advise clients to contact them.
Yes, that's a really good question, And, you know, there are some, you know, good resources within the community. And, you know, one of the ways to identify if an organization or a debt management company is an appropriate agency to work with is to go to the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. And the National Foundation for Credit Counseling website lets you know all of those credit counseling agencies that are a member of that. And that's really kind of that resource that we go to find who is the right credit counseling agency to go to. Unfortunately, there's some ads, not all ads, but there are predatory services at times out there where an individual might have to pay a considerable amount to be able to manage their debt. I also would encourage you in your local community, if you're not already a part of the local asset building community, to please you know, become a part of their network in that area. And if you send me an email at mroux@ndi.inc.org, and Nakia can put it in the chat box, I can connect you with the local partners within your area.
Great, thank you, Michael. The next question is, some individuals may be afraid to open bank accounts due to resource limits impacting the amount of aid or subsidy they may be receiving. What do you advise for addressing such fears?
So I'm going to start with this, and then maybe Elizabeth, on the public benefits side, you could look at this. So yeah, individuals are afraid at times to open a bank account because of the resource limits that I save over that certain amount. I still encourage an individual to get a bank account because we know that individuals who achieve financial stability, with or without a disability, are individuals who use a bank account and use it effectively. You know, when we look at the resource limits and the savings, you know, over the $2,000 resource limit, or if you're in a certain state that has a different resource limit at the state level, one of the things to look at is, you know, potentially an individual development account, a max savings account, or, you know, maybe they could utilize the various, some of the work incentives to be able to save money towards an employment goal. And so those are two things to be able to look at and to share with an individual who might be afraid to open that bank account because of the resource limits. Elizabeth, do you have additional thoughts?
Yeah, I just think, you know, there's two different kinds of accounts, obviously. So there's checking accounts and savings accounts. And, you know, checking is usually money in, money out. So at a minimum, folks should be using that as a resource. Otherwise, the very limited funds that they have are going to be spent in ways that have been proven to be not as effective. So, you know, if the person you're dealing with has a low-cost, affordable way that they manage their money, then I'd say if it's not broke, don't fix it. But if there's somebody who's going to check cashing, who is, you know, putting their funds in their house, and maybe they're in a neighborhood where people do get robbed, and they're at potential to lose those funds, then those are folks that really should be targeted for a conversation about this. Most individuals, if they're concerned about going over the $2,000 resource limit, then let's talk about ways that you can utilize those resources in ways that will not impact your public benefit. So even if there's not an IDA provider in that local area, perhaps there's a pooled trust. Perhaps the benefit that you're utilizing has another list of resources that don't count against your public benefit that the individual could purchase.
If I could just add one thing, the person who asked the question about the filing status for an individual who's 18 years or younger, I tried to pull up the information, and so I just need to look in one other place. If you please send me an email, and my email address is in the chat box, I'll send you the link that provides you the answer to your question.
So another question is, I'm a disabled individual interested in opening an IDA, but they're not offered in the state where I live. Is there some way other than through the state to set up an IDA? So, so I'm going to go ahead and take that one because I really like individual development accounts. But they're not the only way to utilize your savings in a way that's going to be protected against impacting some critically needed public benefit, such as Medicaid, or whatever benefit you need that you rely on. Unfortunately, the rules, the public benefit rules are that an IDA is only protected against impacting your public benefit if it is set up through Assets for Independence funds or TANF block grant funds. That's why we often talk about AFI IDAs. But one of the options that you can look at is you can look, if you're an individual with a disability and that someone that qualifies under Social Security's rules, then you can look in your state to see if there's a pooled trust. A pooled trust, like a swimming pool, a pooled trust lets you put your income in the trust. It's pooled with other people so that you're all earning more money on your income. And then the organization who runs the pooled trust is your conduit to accessing your funds. So an individual can use the money in an IDA to pay for anything that their public benefit doesn't provide. Another option is to look at what's going to come down the pike now, ABLE accounts. And we did get a question about ABLE accounts, but there's a little bit of a gap in information going on right now in ABLE accounts. If you check out NDI's YouTube video, and Nakia, perhaps you could put the link in the chat box, our Executive Director, Michael Morris, posted a few videos on ABLE accounts and everything that you need to know. But these are accounts that are going to allow individuals with disabilities, qualified individuals with disabilities, to save money in an account that's not going to count against your public benefit. So this is going to offer a new opportunity for people to go through the circle, you know, understand public benefits, be employed, be financially educated, save money, and now build assets to save for individual goals that won't be restricted by IDAs or other kind of limited savings opportunities. We don't have all the information we need to give you training on ABLE accounts at this point, but as more information comes, just stay part of the network and we'll keep you updated. So we're really out of time now, so we're going to thank you all for joining us today. If you didn't get an answer to your question, please email myself, ejennings@ndi-inc.org, or Michael Roush, mroush@ndi-inc.org, or Nakia Matthews, nmatthews@ndi-inc.org. Lots of options. Until then, we hope you'll join us for our next webinar, which will take place next month, Wednesday, February 11th at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you have time, check out our future webinars and archived webinars at www.realeconomicimpact.org. Thank you again to our presenter, Michael, and to our sponsors, Walmart, Bank of America, Accorda Therapeutics, Burton Blatt Institute, and the IRS. Also, special thanks to Nakia Matthews for facilitating this technology today, and to all of you for joining us. Have a great start to this new year, and we hope to see you next month.